I'm lucky enough to kick off and set some context around the topic this morning. And the first question I want to ask around building culture, because there's so many brilliant investment minds in the room. In 1972, if you could have put money in any of these particular sectors, would you? Remember, this is the time of the ending of the Vietnam War, the Olympics in Munich, where there was the shooting. You get the sense of the era. We were just pulling troops out. Would you put money in an airline, a low-margin retail company? Any of these resonate for anyone? Vinod? Samir? Yes. So here's the thing. If you look at typical models, and we tend to look at typical models when we evaluate whether to invest in stuff, they would have said no. If you looked at like Michael Porter's 5 Forces, threats of new entrants, well, there were plenty of potential new entrants in, retail or, competitive rivalry. Sure, there were tons of them in the railroad and other industries. And if you would have said no, you actually would have been wrong. And by the way, the thing that just came up there said, what about culture? Surprise, when you look at the average annual returns of a lot of these companies from 1972 to 2000, they were all stellar performers. So why did they succeed more than other companies in their space? Because of strong culture. Culture was the named element in the success of these companies like Walmart and others. So, we talk about strategic planning, organizational reengineering, quality as all these factors when we think about why to invest or what make companies great. We don't always talk about culture. But the fact is that the most frequently cited reason for success or lack of success in many, many companies is organizational culture. In fact, 74 of the 75 financial analysts who looked at this said that, highly successful companies were really had long-term success because they built great cultures. We heard Bill Gates speak last night, and I had the opportunity to work for Microsoft for about 7 years. And I think you heard Bill say, a lot of people left Microsoft, but then they came back. Remember when he said that? Then they came back. And I can tell you, I was there at the time. People left for many reasons, right? They wanted to do something fresh. They'd been there for too long. They thought they could, make more money because the stock was flat. But there's only one reason that I heard over and over again from people when they came back, and tons of people came back. They missed the culture of Microsoft. And so, we know it builds morale. It's an important element, and that's why we're talking about it this morning. There's lots and lots of ways and tools to evaluate culture, and I have like 10 minutes this morning. So I'm not going to walk you through all the different ways that you can look at the variance of what your people want and how that can drive how you as a CEO will lead the cultural evolutions of your companies if you haven't already done so. Here's one, the competing values framework. It looks at all kinds of internal and external factors and helps you figure out whether you should have a more collaborative culture or a more control culture. And various companies in the sector, when you look at them, have the cultures you would expect. We did a little competing analysis survey at Nirvanix. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but we heard the things that we expected to hear. Salespeople wanted more collaboration. Operations people wanted more control. The things that are kind of normal that you would, when you talk to people in the space. And we've been working on that to form our cultural mapping around what we think the company should and focus on when we think about building culture. And by the way, I've been at Nirvanix. This is my 6th week. And yeah, it's true. And one thing I'll share, I want to share a little bit just about tips and tricks in my 6 weeks, because the one thing I've noticed, I came into a company that I am the 5th CEO in 6 years. Wow. And when I walked in and I met with all the folks in the company, and I met with every single person in the company, one of the things that I noticed right away is not a single person could tell me what the mission, the vision, or the culture of the company was, which is kind of incredible. That's why when I walked in, I said to everybody, "Hi, I'm Debra. I'm not your new CEO. I'm your last CEO." And they seem to really like that. Let me share just some fun tips, because in 5 weeks, I can't change the whole culture of Nirvanix. We're on the road to healing. We're on the road to our vision and our mission. But here's some things to think about. Number one, don't be afraid to say it's broken, but say it nicely. That doesn't mean you get to walk in and go, everything's broken, or God, you guys screwed this up, right? You always have to respect what came before, because there's a reason my company, your companies exist. And if you're a new CEO, why you were brought in, but you have to respect what came before. But so here's some examples at Nirvanix. Old mission, core values, and culture, none. 0. We took the team off for an offsite, and we started to work on a mission vision. It's not done. I'm not saying this is the right one. I'm not even saying it's the one we'll use. But, right, managing today's information for tomorrow, changing the future of storage forever. Some rallying cry that starts to drive our mission that then we can use to reinforce the culture. The point is, we're doing this. People see we're doing it. So they start to see that culture and mission and vision are important, and they're starting to get excited, and it's starting to change the culture of the company. Number 2, make some visible and bold changes quickly. So here's an example. This was our old investor deck. Old look and feel. New look and feel. Looks good, right? Anybody want to invest? Vinod? Oh, sorry, you already did. Some more? Here's another one. Old office space. This is a company that's in San Diego, by the way, a storage company in San Diego. Great idea. No, we're moving it to Mountain View, and we did move it to Mountain View where we can attract the talent that we feel we need. Here's a new office space. Wow. Right? This was a company that was a sales-driven culture, and you see it in the space. It's sort of a banker space. Now, tech, open. On the other side, there's all whiteboards for collaboration, spending time together, thinking. It's starting to change the culture of the company. I hear, collaboration in the hallways. I see people circling around whiteboards. It's pretty exciting for everybody. Make it fun, make it real. Now, there's a guy from this company called Kleiner something. His name is something like a sports hero. No, it's a hero. Flash something, Gordon something. Oh no, that with a search engine, Bing something. Anyways, a friend of Vinod's, and he actually advised us in a previous company I worked for, and he made a recommendation. Bing Gordon, by the way, if you didn't get the joke. He told us to make movie posters. So I took the team aside to get a feeling of the kind of culture they wanted, the kind of company they wanted. And they did these movie posters, and they presented them to each other. So here's one, Deep Impact. Nirvanix has deep impact. Oceans rise, cities fall, data survives. Here's another one. Prepare for the year of awesomeness. Nirvanix 2 in a theater near you. And then another one. Oh, my goodness, look at that. Pirates of the Cloud, right? Be blown away by the storage impact or whatever. I mean, it's just a fun way, again, to start to build cultural norms, get people involved in what they want the company to feel like, and to make it fun. Because nobody wants to work in a company that's not fun, that's not creative, that's not innovative. So this is in the spirit of building an innovative culture at Nirvanix. Don't attempt to do this feat alone. Bring your leadership team along for the ride. You can't do this by yourself. You can be the champion of culture, but you can't drive it without a team. We recently did an offsite. You could see down there, there's David Waden gets around, doesn't he? You see him in the corner there? He was speaking to our team down in Carmel Valley, and we started to do some brainstorming around culture. I can lead it, but we all have to own the culture of the company is the point. And so David shared some tidbits of wisdom, one of my favorite, which he shared, which really inspired the team, which is his Mike Tyson quote, which is everybody has a plan till you get punched in the face. That really made everybody feel great. Thank you, David. It was awesome. Adding some new blood can help. I've been here for 5 weeks. I've added a bunch of people, me, then I brought in a guy, and then he brought in a guy. Every time you bring in somebody new and somebody fresh, you know what it does? It adds to the momentum. It adds to the feeling, and it changes the culture. I want to have a stronger technical culture at Nirvanix, not a sales culture. All these folks are tech people, and they were brought in for a reason, because they're starting to move that feeling of technical innovation into the company. Cultural campaigns. I did this one at Cisco, Mojo, more Mojo. So when I got to Cisco, I realized that the WebEx team didn't have any Mojo. So I created a program called More Mojo, and we gave everybody Mojo beans, and it started to sort of build this culture around More Mojo. I knew it worked when one evening, very late, I got into the elevator, and there was an engineer in there, a very quiet guy, and I walked in the elevator, and he had his head down. He goes, "Hi, boss, more Mojo." And I said, "Okay, we're getting there." But that's part of creating a culture of pride and integrity. And so one example. Another one, Andrew mentioned I was at Zynga. Zynga had a great campaign called Loved at Zynga. And it created a culture of appreciating employees and feeling loved, and there were lots of Loved at Zynga stuff. So as you're thinking about these tips and tricks to kind of move it along, sometimes some fun campaigns, they're great, and they help to drive new cultural norms in your company. Rule number 7, and the last one, I was going to do 10, but I figured you all had a bunch of hangovers, so I didn't want to go too long. In the end, it's up to you. You're the CEO. You have to be the change. It has to come from you. You can't do it by yourself, but you have to be the spirit and embody change for your organization. So first rule, be authentic. Yes, that's me doing push-ups. That's right, it's the truth. She just sneezed on it. That is. Because I'm always late, and so I want to encourage myself not to be late. So I say every time anybody is late, you have to do 2 push-ups. And since I make everybody do them, I do them too. At Zynga, I started doing that, and then one day Pincus came late, and he and I had a push-up contest, and then the whole company did it. So the stuff you do can transcend the whole company. Just make sure if you use this one that you can actually do the push-ups. And then, you have to be the change is the point, right? You can't put it on other people. There's no, back to conversations we heard yesterday, you've got to be in and among your people, and you have to lead this with your spirit and your energy. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Andrew. You going to take it back and introduce Amit? Great. Thank you for your attention, and be the change for culture.
So just to recognize the folks who made the effort, who has already emailed me? Raise your hand. All right, thank you. So pressure to the people around you. AC at Coastal Ventures. And they can be like the rules, they can be ideas, they can be quotes, things that your company lives by, and it can be very short and pithy. So the next person that I'd like to introduce is someone that has been brewing for a long time. Don Runkle, who you met yesterday from EcoMotors, he and I spent a long time with Vinod thinking about gene pool engineering for a company that has incredible technology and very great prospects. And filled with who's who from the Detroit auto industry, we wanted to think about how we can inject Silicon Valley-style blood, but in an engine-building context. So we spent a long time scouring the earth for someone that could be his partner in crime, a COO. And hands down, Amit Soman came as the winner there, or maybe the loser, depending on how the company goes. But Amit was one of the rising stars at Cummins, which is one of the world's largest engine companies. Among many other accomplishments at a very early age, he was sent to China in 2008. This is someone who doesn't speak any Mandarin Chinese, as you'll see in a moment. He built Cummins' engine business from 0 to $1 billion in about 5 years, and which is important since our strategy is going to have a big China component. So Amit Soman is going to talk about some of the cultural aspects that he's observed and espoused. Thanks.
Cool. And no, I won't present in Mandarin. I don't have as many cool slides as Debra did. I don't have as many pictures, so I'll be a bit more transactional. I don't know if, Debra, you covered this. I kind of modeled this from your format as well. So very brief, quick, 10 seconds about EcoMotors. We are developing a new engine architecture. This word on the second line, which probably yesterday was talked about during dinner about 100 times, it is indeed disruptive. What we are going after is all of the conventional engines as they've been known for the last 100 years. We intend to displace that convention. The name of this architecture is OPOC. That's the opposed piston, opposed cylinder. And power density is the ultimate goal, leading to some of the benefits written below that. We're about 37 people. I'll play this in context with some of the points I want to share later. So fairly small still. And I trumped Debra by 1 week. So this is my 7th week in the company. So here, I reiterated the 7 points that she went through. So I just kept them on one slide. The ones that are underlined, I was going to talk about the same points. But since she already covered them, I just underlined them. So this is my ditto to her. So I won't go through them. I'll go through a few that are different points that I wanted to go through. First one, table stakes. And I'm talking about table stakes as it comes to culture specifically. Andrew, in a way, alluded to this. So table stakes, number one, is gene pool engineering. That's he just hinted to that in terms of talent injection. Second is people problems don't get better over time. So separate C players quickly if you can. And the third being, most of us, and I'm still trying to get out of this trap, we look for talent within our industry rather than more experimental talent. But these three, which is C players, getting basic gene pool engineering for talent injection, and looking for experimental talent, these become table stakes. Without these, some of the other elements may not become as relevant. Now, the bad thing is, it takes sustained effort over time. This cannot be done within a week or two. So these activities to get the table stakes right have actually been in play in EcoMotors since about Q3 last year, so way before I joined. The informality and the energy part of it, and I cannot stress this enough. Debra, through some of her pictures, hinted to the informality part of it. So coming in from a startup environment in a large company, which is where I was, I came into this somehow thinking 16 to 18 hours a day, then go out for a beer with the group after that and work some more, weekend meetings. So basically a understanding in my mind that there will be a work-life trade-off for a few years. That was somehow the understanding I came in with. The picture I saw was a tad bit different. What actually Andrew referred to when I was talking with him as Detroit hours versus Silicon Valley hours. And I'm not using hours as a metric, but as an indicator of injection of the energy. So we've tried a few things in the last month or two, just using one example, which is like maniacally meeting customer commitments. So using that, which historically we were not the best at, and using that as an example, we exercise some of these elements to inject this informality and energy, and it seems to work. It's not like inherently individuals who are there wanted to work bankers' hours, so to speak. Again, hours not being the metric. The informality was the key piece. I'm again stressing a little bit what Debra mentioned as well. This is a phrase, the hunters and farmers. You may have heard it in different contexts before. I've used it a lot in sales contexts. So for example, think of any of your large accounts, which is a mature account, you've had this business for a while as a customer, and the definition of the account manager who's managing that account essentially is don't screw up. If that's the definition of that salesperson or the account manager, that's more like a farmer, where routine is set, things are set for that individual. Hunters, on the other hand, are more pure business development folks who have to drum up new business. Applying this in the culture setting, I'll talk first about the farmers part of it. So if you said type A farmers, these are the folks who are set in their ways, and most of us have them. Call them as industry veterans, or the been there, done that, or functional experts. And indeed, there is value in having functional experts, but if you think of the history of these functional experts that we bring, they've gone from point A to point B in their careers dozens of times. But just because of this word that we've used multiple times, disruptive, we are not going to a point B. We are trying to find a point C, which was not found before. So the relevance of these functional experts can get limited. I'm not entirely downplaying the importance of functional experts, but the relevance gets limited when you're trying to find a different point. Second element also happens is, again, observation in short period. Functional experts may get in this mode of telling when really you want doers. So I wouldn't go as far as saying that beware of functional experts. I'd say use them carefully. And then the type 2 farmers, which is the point there, would be more of the large consulting houses or consultants. In the automotive industry or in the engineering space, industrial space, there are quite a few large engineering consultants who indeed bring value in terms of augmenting the skills that are required, but not 10 of them. Until we grow or acquire the skill, indeed, if we have to use the consultants, use them limited. Now, the hunters, on the other hand, are the folks who are nimble, flexible, able to adapt on mistakes and reiterate. And we have some changes to make in terms of this hunter-farmer combination. the position players, the key players, and these could be different roles in any of our companies, say, be it a vice president of engineering, a sales leader, a product manager. The key position players should be hunters, is the opinion I'm sharing here, rather than a farmer who is a bit set in the way. Alignment, and this one is probably one of the toughest ones for any of the leadership teams to digest or accept. The alignment piece can be either on the direction of the company, the technical direction, customers, business strategy. If there is any dissension within the key company leaders, it gets sensed quickly, especially, say, in a company size 37 people. It multiplies with fervor. It creates silos, two different groups going in different directions. And getting this alignment right can very quickly have an impact on the speed and execution. And we had simple things, for example, connecting some of these dots to give you examples. We've done small things. So I really like the pictures that Debra had, which is the tall office spaces. So we're going through the same transformation, more of an open office layout, has significant impact on the energy level in the organization. Again, small example on the same lines, which is somehow in those office spaces, many of us who sat in the offices, it was referred to as a mahogany row. So breaking that, right, I deliberately packed up, went to the smallest cubicle that I could find in the office. Signs, you'll see signs in terms of this informality, the energy part of it, the alignment part of it, and all of these connect to the speed and execution. So again, I didn't put words as, because Debra has a lot more experience in the industry, so I just call them observations. And since she ended with a quote, I'll end with one as well. I couldn't find the source of it, but I've read this before. So in a way, the relevance of what we are talking is linked to, especially this observation that I'm sure many of you have had as well. I'm doing it before time, Andrew.
All right, thank you, Amit.
Thank you.
Why don't you guys come up? Right. So before we take a couple of questions, I must have learned something yesterday from the Mentalist, because that little exercise got, I think, close to 100% participation. And there were a lot of really interesting comments. Again, we'll compile all these, categorize them, and analyze them using one of the big data companies somehow to make sense of it. But just a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting. There were a couple of companies that really put culture at the forefront of their hiring. In Health Tap, they actually came up with the culture statement before they even wrote their first line of code, and they've stuck to it. And now it's everywhere on the recruiting materials. They hold everyone accountable for it. I know Wattpad has done something similar, where for them, having a really good vision and culture statement and making sure every person in the organization is bought in month to month, week to week is really important. There were a lot of very specific physical related suggestions. So Niru from CK12 and Vinod's favorite person in the world, said more human-human interactions, meaning that for small things, don't chat through a computer, go to their desk and talk. There were a lot of points around fairness, transparency, meritocracy, equity. There were things around making sure that you're recognizing people for what they're accomplishing. At Adamant, Sam wrote that we have a 16-pound brass bell that you get to ring when you solve a hard problem, and everyone has to be adamant about what they know is right and honest and what they don't know. In some cases, there were folks that were so, actually, everyone started sending me their little vision statement. I got a PowerPoint with this and that. Don actually gave me this little card that has 7 values that everyone has in their little pocket protector at work every day. Folks who have products, there are marketplaces or whatnot, there's an encouragement to stay close to doing that product and living that stuff. So Collabora, Nora, which is an online marketplace for makers, they actually have a Thursday Collabora Labs where every Thursday everyone makes things, and the CEO and backend developers, they recently learned knitting as a result to stay passionate to that. And And so the list goes on and on. But one of the ones that maybe I'll close with is just around really pushing people to think about themselves in the company. And so Josh from Hampton Creek wrote, get better meetings. Once a week, I meet with everyone in the company to ask 3 questions. Everyone in the company. How can the company get better? How can you get better? And how can I get better? And then we meet the following week and talk about what we did to move it forward. And it's helped build a culture of getting better every day. He also wrote that they give gorilla dolls out to people who fight for the yes, for the answer in the experiment, etc. It's a way of expressing tenacity, which drives all of us. So, well, give you guys a hand. It's actually really neat stuff that I saw, and I wish I could have talked about everything. So to close, why don't we have maybe two questions for the panelists about culture, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Sir.
I was fascinated by Zynga, by the way. It seemed to attract an incredible amount of talent and release lessons that came out of that are. Oh, sorry. So I was fascinated by watching Zynga attract an amazing amount of talent and then release an incredible amount of talent, sort of in a peak that I've never seen before. Are there lessons or observations that come out of that? And I noticed you're not there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the comment there is more around managing hypergrowth than culture. I think Zynga had a terrific culture and some very strong core values around meritocracy and leveling up and being the CEO of the company that I always admired and thought were really powerful. I just think that that's more a question of understanding your market and understanding your growth and managing hypergrowth. I think when I joined the company, there were 1,000 people. 2 years later, there were 3,000 people. That's an enormous amount of growth to manage and digest, regardless of the culture of the company.
Amit, I have a question for you. How have people responded to your change in, or your attempt to change culture? Your typical engineer.
Very favorably. Some of these little changes which I was pointing to, changing offices from myself and our vice president of engineering, taking the office walls down or going in that direction, bringing some of the work in-house by removing consultants who were there before, extremely well received. I was a bit apprehensive, having never worked in Detroit before, how it would be received. I didn't get any sense of we are set in our ways, we want to do it this way. In fact, I got the opposite sense, which is waiting for it. That's the sense I got. Liberated, if you will. So absolutely no resistance at all.